A well-loved fan favorite, not just for his glass cannon nuking skill, but also for his appearance as a bone dragon. Finally getting his turn on the tune-up treatment, it is FDR00 Greed, regraded, with the kit of Laser, Double Sword, Biped Legs, and the leg ability of Carnage, which buffs his base power when an arm is broken. Now when it comes to all-round nuking, you really can't get much better when it comes to the Bone Dragon type that Greed is. Even if his armor is relatively light, he does make up for it with a very high base power, and even if he is packing some mixed skills between one shooting skill and two melee skills, this is honestly no exception to how powerful he can be over time the longer he's allowed to stay on the field. Laser is a shooting skill that is an optic attribute, meaning it will gain a times 1.5 damage bonus upon a 30% Metaforce charge and a times 2 damage bonus at 100% charge. And this also is Greed's only Metaforce reliant attack. His arms and more conventional are Basic Sword, which is a basic, all-around, and versatile conventional melee skill. No major drawbacks, no weaknesses, no penalties. This is a part you can generally never ever go wrong with using if you need a conventional melee part. And as mentioned, when it comes to conventional melee, Greed honestly has this market cornered when it comes to his base power. At the cost, of course, he is relatively squishy when it comes to his base HP. This honestly is a pretty fair trade-off as long as you can keep him alive. Biped Legs means that Greed will have very good coverage across most terrains, and arguably one of the most well-rounded kinds of leg types compared to most others. And the Carnage leg ability is really good too, as this actually does take his relatively low HP count into account, and it kind of makes it to a point where if you can break parts on purpose without crippling him, such as controlled damage, this can actually make him even more of a menace on the field if the enemy doesn't take him down fast enough. And then when it comes to speed, it is also worth noting that Greed actually has one of the much higher end conventional biped legs, which means these are legs you can use very easily anywhere, whether that be on a pure set or as mixed parts, very easily not just for the leg ability, but also for the stats. Now when it comes to his tune-up treatment, compared to most other models which tend to kind of round out things that he wasn't super great on, Greed kind of instead chose to take all of his upgrade points and put them into dealing as much damage as possible one way or another. Starting with his head, he has access to plus 400 to armor, plus 100 to heat and cool each, and a damage plus that gets a 20% charge requirement reduction on his laser, which means instead of requiring 30% to activate the full 100% damage bonus, he has access to only 10% in need instead. Now, even though as mentioned, Greed tends to focus more on damage, he is pretty light on armor, if I'm completely honest, and that does make him a very easy target to pick off if you tend to overlook him or not pay attention. That being said, naturally, of course, the damage plus bonus is going to be the big go-to when it comes to his laser, but for any extra points that you do have left over, I would honestly consider investing into armor to kind of boost his overall survivability just a little bit and make it easier for him to last longer without getting nuked. His right arm has access to plus 300 to armor, plus 100 to power, and a damage plus that gets a 30% damage bonus when triggering pierce damage. Now, normally when we see damage bonuses like this, we normally only see it something higher than, say, 20 or 25%, but Greed here gets 30%, which gives him an extra reward just for breaking apart and triggering more carryover damage on top of that. So easily goes without saying, that is going to be the big go-to upgrade, but with any extra points, much like his head, extra armor definitely would behoove Greed to kind of extend his survivability just a little bit longer on the field. Left arm has access to plus 300 to armor, much like his other arm, plus 50 to cool, and has the same damage plus bonus as his right arm. So naturally, that does go without saying, the damage bonus is going to be the big go-to item absolutely and priority one. After that, armor would still be very nice to go after, once again, to extend any further viability and survivability that Greed might be in need of. Personally, the cooldown bonus is nice, but 50 really isn't anything noticeable, so that upgrade I would honestly skip right over and not pay attention to. His legs have access to plus 300 armor, plus 300 to shoot resist, His Carnage leg ability will get a plus 200 more to power when triggered, and of course he will also have possibility of S rank on prairie terrains. Now again, much like his other parts, armor is a really good leftover bonus if you have any points left over. But to be completely honest, his shoot resist isn't super high either, in about the mid 700s, so he definitely could benefit from a little more resistance in that category if you decide to put your points there instead. But the big bonus that you want to shoot for when it comes to his legs is the Carnage bonus, as plus 200 to power is actually very easily noticeable compared to most other bonuses that you might see, especially on leg abilities and their conditions. Plus, if you were to, say, pair this off with, say, Sacrifice, which is purposely destroying parts, that honestly could make that a very dangerous skill if used correctly. S rank on prairie terrain is nice to have, but since he's already got A rank on it, an extra 10% to his leg stats really isn't going to make or break anything that he has packing compared to what he was already doing before. Now, taking into account his old pure set and mixed parts scores I had him ranked at, I did originally have him graded at a 7 out of 10 for his pure set and an 8 out of 10 for his mixed. But taking into account all of his new possible upgrades to extend his survivability and overall damage dealing bonuses, I do have to bump him up to about a 7.5 for his pure set bonus and a 9 out of 10 for his mixed part bonuses. Again, even with the extra armor, Greed is relatively squishy when it comes to HP, which means that if you nuke him fast enough, he can honestly be made relatively harmless, if not outright killed within the first 1 or 2 turns with some intense hammering. But as mixed parts, you do have a lot of viability and versatility choices if you choose to use them. For instance, like I mentioned earlier with the Carnage like ability, pairing them off with something that does purposely break upon use, such as Sacrifice or Microwave or Microshock, could definitely capitalize on that bonus very easily and make whoever's using his legs even more of a menace than they could be before.